All right, what is going on, everybody? How is everybody doing today? The college football season is over. Congrats to Ohio State for winning the first ever 12-team playoff. They just beat Notre Dame, and it wasn't really that close throughout the game. So, in honor of the college football season ending and pretty much the NFL divisional round ending, shout out to the Chiefs, Bills, Eagles, and Commanders for winning their matchups to set up a conference championship. We're going to be doing a new first round mock draft. So, yeah, we're going to hop into this. This is obviously before anything with free agency. We're hearing a little bit of rumblings as the Bears also just hired Ben Johnson since the Lions got sent home earlier than they expected. And yeah, we are going to be doing a 2025 first round mock draft here today. I am excited for this one now that we know some of the draft order after the teams that did make the playoffs that got eliminated, like the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Green Bay Packers. We know where they're going to be exactly picking in this draft. And we still know that the Tennessee Titans are picking number one. They fired Rand Carthen, their general manager. I don't really agree with that, but they ended up doing it anyway. It seems like their ownership has been making some rash decisions as of late, but I do think that they're going to still go quarterback with the number one pick. Pretty much the consensus number one quarterback in this draft. Definitely a boom or bust prospect, but has very high potential in this league. I think Cam Ward ends up going number one still. They need a quarterback. Will Levis isn't the guy. I do think Will Levis could still have a fine career in this league, maybe as a high-end backup, but Tennessee desperately needs to add a franchise quarterback if Brian Callahan and whoever the incoming GM wants to be the guy there. And I think Cam Ward gives them the best chance. They end up with the number one pick. Yes, they could trade down, but who's going to be the quarterback next year unless they view themselves as like a Sam Darnold team or Justin Fields reclamation project team? I think you just go with Cam Ward, the number one pick in the draft, and you hope for the best there. So here at number two, this is interesting because the Cleveland Browns could go quarterback. We know that Deshaun Watson may miss most of this upcoming season because of the Achilles injury, and they can't really, they could end up signing a Kirk Cousins or an Aaron Rodgers if it's for the minimum, a la Russell Wilson to the Steelers 2.0, but would they reach on a Shedeur Sanders? I don't know if Shedeur is talented enough to be the number two pick in this draft. This team has a lot of needs. I think they either go Abdul Carter from Penn State or they go Travis Hunter. I think that they are going to go Travis Hunter here, number two. And I think you just get somebody that you could put at corner, you could put at receiver, but a team like Cleveland, they could use a receiver, right? Like it's Jared Jeudy, Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, not the worst core in the world, but far from the best. And David Njoku, it's a good overall receiving core, but you could use another corner out there with Newsome and Denzel Ward going forward. So here we are, the Giants at number three. This could be a shocker because I don't know. This is the problem with keeping Daboll and Joe Schoen. They need a quarterback, right? And you look at all the quarterbacks that are going to be on the market, either in free agency or via the draft. And you could take Shedeur here at number three. That's definitely in consideration. It's either Shedeur or Abdul Carter, because you can get an elite edge rusher, pair him up on that D-line with Dexter Lawrence, and now you have something over there in New York. And I don't think they're a Sam Darnold team. Why would he want to go back to MetLife after the disaster his time was with the Jets playing there? Maybe just bad vibes. Yeah, you're going to go after Fields. You're going to go after Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers. Maybe Kirk Cousins is a fine bridge quarterback because this Giants team, they drafted well last year. And you have a wide receiver one in Malik. You have a good running back in Tyrone Tracy. Drew Phillips looks like a good corner that they snagged in this draft. And they have good playmakers. They really do. So maybe they're a team that ends up, to keep Daboll and Shane's job. That is not Shedeur Sanders. And that would end up being a veteran quarterback on the market, like I just said. Maybe they end up trading for Geno Smith, right? Maybe he's available on the market and they go that route. So I'm going to go with arguably the best defensive player in this draft. It's him and Travis Hunter. Hunter obviously gets a bump because of the wide receiver eligibility. But yeah, it's Carter, Mason Graham. But what Carter did in the college football playoffs was incredible. Just the blend of speed and strength and the bend as he's able to get low off the line of scrimmage. And that would just be so valuable for the Giants. Because the Giants, yes, their offense was pretty bad and brutal to watch. But say they do add I don't know if it'll be Aaron Rodgers because of the Jets thing, but say they do add Kirk Cousins, and I think they could add a receiver in the offseason as well. If you get Kirk Cousins for the minimum, now that you're off the Daniel Jones contract, Shane and Daboll could maybe keep their job going forward if they could bring the Giants to the playoffs. And I don't know if Shedeur is worth that. Because they might be bad with Shedeur and they may not even make it through that year. So we have the Pats at number four. I think they could go a couple different routes here. They could go Mason Graham. This team basically needs everything. They could go Ted McMillan. They need that wide receiver one for Drake May. It's kind of tough who I think I'm going to have them go here. I think I'm going to have them go Ted McMillan, just a little bit more need. I mean, they need everything, like I said, but I want to give Drake May the best possible weapons out there. And we're seeing what Jaden Daniels has. And honestly, he's making a lot out of maybe not the greatest weapons in the world, but Caleb Williams has a ton of weapons. I want to set up Drake May for success. And I don't know if I would take an offensive lineman there at 4. You could. Like, you could take Will Campbell there at 4. You could take Kelvin Banks there at 4 as well. But I think receiver could be a little bit more valuable for this team going forward. But I think that one's up for debate. Like, I'm kind of regretting it. I'm kind of not. I think it would be that or Will Campbell. I don't know if they would go Mason Graham. But speaking of Mason Graham, I think he would go 5-year to Jacksonville. This team has its quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. We'll see who their new head coach is going to be. They didn't fire Trent Baalke, so they most likely lost out on Ben Johnson for that reason. But yeah, you have Lawrence. You have Brian Thomas Jr. I guess you're going to have the combination of Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne. They can definitely draft one in this class as well, but they could look to add some defenders or offensive linemen. Will Campbell could be an option, but I don't know if they would prioritize tackle here, maybe interior, but that's a little high at 5. So you're going to go Mason Graham, just an absolute wrecking ball, and he can be on that defensive line with Trayvon Walker and Joshua Hines Allen. That's really good there in Jacksonville, and we're setting up them to have an elite front 7 next year. So here, Raiders 6. Tom Brady's the owner now. They want to make a splash. You know Mark Davis wants to get a big name, and that could be Shedeur Sanders. Could they end up signing Dion? I don't know. Like, Dion was talked with Jerry Jones to go to Dallas, which would just be hilarious over the course of the year. But I think they would go Shedeur if he falls 6. I think there's a reason why they lost out on Ben Johnson, because they don't really have a direction at quarterback. And I think getting Shedeur at least lays the foundation for that going forward. You're going to have a great safety blanket for Shedeur in year 1 and Brock Bowers, and hopefully for the rest of their careers there. Jacoby Myers, not a bad receiver. We'll see if they're going to add to like the Trey Tuckers of the world. They could definitely do that in free agency with some cap space as well. And yeah, Shedeur, I think if he's on the board at 6, you're going to go that route. But I think if he ends up going 3, they could be like the Kirk Cousins veteran quarterback route. Maybe they end up getting Sam Darnold. I'm sure Tom Brady can lure Sam Darnold over there to Vegas. So we have the Jets at 7, a team that could also need a quarterback. You're not taking any of these guys here. Milroe did not help out his draft stock. Will Howard did, but you're not taking Will Howard at 7, right? Like, you're probably not even taking Will Howard in the first round. He might be more of a day 2 pick. So I'm going to look for the Jets to add Will Johnson. They still have Sauce Gardner, who I think is still going to be in a weak corner in this league. Had somewhat of a down year this year. The Jets could look at O-line, but you know what? It was fine throughout the course of the year. And you have, you drafted Olu Fashanu last year. I'm just going to go Will Johnson. With DJ Reed being a free agent, I think it could make a ton of sense to get the best corner in this draft. So on the clock here, 8, we have the Carolina Panthers. I guess it is a little unfortunate that Abdul Carter, Mason Graham, and Will Johnson are all off the board for them. Mike Green out of Marshall, been getting a ton of hype as of late, as he could end up going this high at number 8. I wouldn't hate the idea of adding Tyler Warren to help you out in your run blocking scheme for Chuba Hubbard, and he gives you a good receiving target for Bryce Young. So it's pretty much, do you like Mike Green or do you like maybe Nick Scorton here? I think they should go edge rusher, and I think I like those guys over Mykel Williams a little bit at the spot at number 8 for Carolina. I think I'm going to have them go Nick Scorton here from A&M, who was elite at Purdue in 23. Maybe didn't have the best year to his standards at A&M this year, but I think it's good enough to have a potential to be a really good player with Derek Brown on that defensive line and Jadeveon Clowney if they keep him. Saints at number 9. God, they need everything, right? They do. I think we can go a bunch of different routes here. I don't know if they would go receiver. That's a need. I think we have a lot of other needs on this team. Tyler Warren, I mean, they have the Jawan Johnson, Taysom Hill thing. They just got to go best player available at this point. And I think I'm just going to end up taking Will Campbell. I think if he falls here to 9, you got to hop on getting maybe a blue chipper tackle for you long term. And I think that could have been like an option for the Panthers at 8, but this team is going to look very different next year. They're probably going to be at the bottom of the NFL standings. Let's get a good offensive tackle for their future. At 10 here for the Chicago Bears, I think they could look to go offensive line as well if they would feel comfortable about bumping anybody inside. Or you could just go, I think, Kelvin Banks outside. And I think we got to protect Caleb Williams. They brought in Ben Johnson. Maybe they want to add another running back, and maybe you put in Ashton Genty in that offense. Like, that could just be Jahmyr Gibbs, basically 2.0 over in Chicago, which I kind of love, but I think they need to keep protecting Caleb Williams. There's a reason why Detroit's offense was so good. It's because they have Penei Sewell, they have an elite offensive line, and that could be Kelvin Banks, hopefully in the long term for Chicago. 11 here for the San Francisco 49ers. I think we can also look to go edge rusher as well, just to add to that defensive line. With Banks and Campbell off the board, I think those could have been options for them, but I'm going to actually take Mike Green, who's had a lot of hype as of late, to go in that top 16 in the draft, and I feel like that could be just like the pinnacle San Francisco 49er. They end up getting potentially one of the best edge rushers in this class at number 11. I'm still on it. Like in the mocks, I think Ashton Jeanty is going to go to Dallas there at number 12. I think it would be wise to probably pass up on that and adding another receiver like a Luther Burden to CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott over there. I think that would be a good idea. I think they could also look at defense if like maybe Banks or Campbell falls, then you take that. But like running back for Dallas in this position, they're going to have a new head coach. Probably not the wisest decision in the world. I would maybe think like Minnesota at 24 could be a better fit, or Denver at 20 could make a little bit more sense, but it's just what Jerry Jones is going to do. I really wonder who's going to be their next head coach. So Miami, we got to protect Tua Tagovailoa. They have a lot of needs on this team. They could go Malachi Starks as well, who didn't have like the greatest college football playoff run, but like still the top probably safety in this class. Yeah, for sure. Maybe number 2 overall secondary member, but I'm going to have them go Josh Simmons from Ohio State. Banged up this year, but we got to protect Tua, and we got to get another offensive lineman there with Armstead getting up there in age. Another perfect fit that I feel like I mocked so far a couple times this year, Tyler Warren to the Colts. Let's complete this offense with or without Anthony Richardson, but now they have a serviceable enough O-line. It's pretty good. You have a elite running back in Jonathan Taylor. You got Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, Adonai Mitchell, and Tyler Warren. No excuses for Anthony Richardson next year, especially if he can stay healthy. We got to add defense here to Atlanta. Wide receiver being in need is weird because you have Darnell Mooney and you have Drake London. I know Pitts has been disappointing, but you're not going for a wide receiver 3 here at 15 with all your defensive needs. So I'm going to have them go James Pierce, the edge rusher out of Tennessee. And it was a little bit better in the second half for them, their pass rush, but Pierce plays a natural stand-up outside linebacker, and I think that could be perfect for Atlanta and Raheem Morris over there. I think we could protect Kyler Murray, but I also kind of like the idea of getting Kenneth Grant here. There's also the idea of going like Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss at 16 here, but I think we're going to go Kenneth Grant. I think we're going to get one of the best defensive players still on the board here, and we're going to snag him there at 16. Could this be Kyle Hamilton 2.0 potentially? As Malachi Starks, I'm going to have go 17 to Cincy. We got to improve the secondary. If they want to play him in multiple different positions, that is fine with me, but I think we have to go just defense here. I know you may lose T. Higgins, but you have Jamar Chase, and you're going to have to pay him, but you have... We'll see what they get in Burden. If anything's better in year 2, Yoshi Voss, they can add somebody. You have a good running back in Chase Brown. You have an elite quarterback in Joe Burrow. Let's get him a defense so we could see the Bengals back in the playoffs in 2025. Seahawks here at 18. We have to go offensive line. This was one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL last year. I may go like Ariante Ursary here. You could go Wyatt Millam. You could go Gray Zabel as well. I mean, interior offensive line, is that a little high at 18? Like we saw Jackson Powers Johnson go high last year, but that is at a center position. So I don't know if it's high, but I'm going to go Tyler Booker, maybe the best interior offensive lineman in this draft from Alabama. We got to protect their next quarterback if it's Geno Smith or not. Maybe they end up taking one on day 2. Maybe they're a Jalen Milroe team to target in round 2, or maybe like a trade up team. We'll see. But if it's Geno or not, this is one of the worst offensive line units outside of like Charles Cross. So we're going to go here to Tampa Bay at number 19. They could go a couple different routes as well. Obviously, a little bit of a disappointing playoff exit to the Washington Commanders. Maybe looks a little bit better after they beat Detroit, but I think we can go a secondary player here. And I think we could just look at Benjamin Morrison, also another player that was banked up this year, but I think Tampa could look to add to their defense. They could look offensive line as well, but I'm going to snag Benjamin Morrison there at 19. Denver at 20. I think they're potentially a Colston Loveland pick. I think that could make a lot of sense as they don't really have a true tight end right now. I think like they could snag Luther Burden from the Pittsburgh Steelers, who could also need a receiver. And this team, like, yeah, they were able to succeed with Cortland Sutton and a bunch of like hodgepodge guys there at the number 2 spot, but I think we can get a little bit more stability with Luther Burden because Sutton won't be here forever, and he could eventually be the wide receiver 1 going forward. For the Steelers, I mean, they need a lot here. You're not taking Milroe or Will Howard. It's way too high to take a quarterback, even though they need one. They don't have anybody under roster right now or under contract outside of Skylar Thompson. They could also look at corner as well, as the Steelers cornerbacks towards the end of the season. It was brutal. They had a lot of injuries, but it wasn't great. I think they could look at Trey Amos here, which I don't mind. The Steelers have done well drafting wide receivers on day 2, and they could look at drafting kind of one of these guys, if it's Xavier Restrepo, if it's Isaiah Bond, if it's Trey Harris. Like one of those guys they can maybe find on day 2. So I'm going to have the Steelers go corner, and it's going to be Trey Amos from Ole Miss. So they are going to snag a corner, which, yeah, they need that. They need maybe another offensive lineman. The Steelers need a lot. So at 22, I'm going to have the Chargers boost up this, I guess, run slash receiving game. We're going to get Colston Loveland, Jim Harbaugh, Michigan makes a lot of sense there. And I don't know if Will Dissly is like your long-term answer there at your tight end position, and they can get Colston Loveland, which makes a ton of sense. We got the Packers here, 23. I think they could use another receiver, right? And I think Emeka Egbuka, who the Steelers could take at 21. I'm going to have them go Emeka here at 23. Christian Watson, tore his ACL. Jaden Reed got banged up in the playoffs. I don't know if Dontavion Wicks or Romeo Dobbs is going to be anything than like a mid wide receiver 2. I don't know if they're even ever going to be high wide receiver 2s. So I think if you can have Egbuka, who him and Jaden Reed could maybe be something for Jordan Love as you're trying to, I think, add to that part of their game. Even though they don't draft receivers in the first round, it would be funny. They never did that with Aaron Rodgers, and they would do it here with Jordan Love. We have the Vikings at 24. I'm going to go running back. I'm going to go the RB2 in this draft, Omarion Hampton. Aaron Jones is a free agent. They want to, I think, have a good enough running back behind JJ McCarthy next year, whoever their bridge quarterback is. And they have a good offense with Hawk and Addison and Jefferson. Let's complete that with Omarion Hampton on a nice rookie contract for them going forward. But they could look to add defense, especially if Brian Flores leaves to get a head coaching job. They may need to add as much talent as possible over there. I'm going to go Wyatt Millum here to the Texans at 25. CJ Stroud got sacked way too much this year, and we got to look to protect him. If he's somebody that you can bump inside, you do that. But they need to really address the offensive line. Like them and Seattle, I think, have to draft an offensive lineman in round 1. So I think kind of falling a little bit here in this mock, as not even sure where PFF has them graded, but Jalen Walker, I think, could definitely be around this range to the Rams at 26, going with these high pedigree prospects like they did last year with Braden Fisk and Jared Verse. We can look to add more on that defense. I think they could be a wide receiver team as well. Like, it looks like it's getting to the end of the road for Cooper Kupp. You have Puka on a great rookie contract right now, but let's get Jalen Walker a playmaker there on the defensive side of the field. I'm going to get an edge rusher there in Baltimore with Kyle Van Noy getting up there in age. They could look at offensive tackle as well with Ronnie Stanley being a free agent, but I'm going to add Michael Williams from the Georgia Bulldogs. I'm sure the Lions and their fans are upset to be picking here at 28. They could look to go interior offensive line, but their team was so banged up on the defensive side of the field. So I'm going to look to add another edge rusher in Shamar Stewart. I think getting pretty good value there at 28, and you're going to have Aiden Hutchinson fully healthy next year. I think there's still some good edge rushers on the board. And I think we can go Jack Sawyer, who just won a national title with Ohio State, to Washington at 29. It seems like they can have like Terry and maybe whoever out there as their wide receiver too, because it's worked this year with Zacchaeus and De'Ami Brown and Noah Brown and just a bunch of different guys they've thrown out there. But I'm going to add Jack Sawyer, who plays with such high intensity and could be great for that team going forward. Buffalo at 30, they could also look at a couple options here. I think I like corner for them, which is some guys being banged up in the playoffs, and I think just having more stability there going forward. I think Jahdae Barron, who's been a multi-year starter at Texas, I think would make a ton of sense for Buffalo just to add into that secondary, and I think they're another team too. It's like, do we need to draft a receiver this high because it's working out clearly with Curtis Samuel and Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman and those guys over there at Buffalo, and Matt Collins as well. Eagles here, like, what do they need? Like, maybe we're going to eventually look at the Lane Johnson replacement over time. We could take, like, Ariante Ursary. We could add another edge rusher to this team. But they just have so many good ones as it is right now. I think another corner with Darius Slay getting up there in age just to add more depth there. Like, they hit on Quinion Mitchell and they hit on Cooper DeJean. They could look at linebacker as well with Zach Bond being a free agent. I don't hate that idea. And I kind of like Chris Paul Jr. a ton out of Ole Miss. So let's go Chris Paul Jr. Maybe it's just my NBA fandom, just seeing a Chris Paul Jr. It's kind of cool. And then we got the Chiefs. And yeah, just the Chiefs picking here at 32. I think just a guy that should go in the first round, Landon Jackson out of Arkansas, just to add an edge rusher to this team. Gives Steve Spagnuolo another option. I don't think they're going to go like receiver just because you're going to have Rashee Rice back healthy. And I know like Travis Kelce could end up retiring, we'll see, but I don't think that they're going to end up looking at a receiver there in round 1. So here we go. This was my mock draft, maybe 3.0. It's my third mock draft. This is post the college football playoffs, as we had Cam Ward go number 1, maybe a switch up Abdul Carter going number 3, getting a blue chipper at the edge rushing position, premium position to the Giants there at 3. If they're going to go like a more veteran QB route, because I do wonder where Shedeur goes if the Giants find their quarterback at 3, because I don't think Shedeur is going 2. Could a team trade up? We'll see. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of this mock down below. Let me know if you agree or disagree with what I had your team picking. And if you do enjoy the mock drafts, I'd appreciate you dropping a thumbs up, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.